Hey folks, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about CloudWatch custom metrics and application logging. So looking at the DevOps doctrine, abbreviated here, we want to go into EC2 OS and application logging, but this lesson is going to have a heavy focus on custom metrics. So custom metrics and logging are important tools for the DevOps engineer, and they are also represented well on the DevOps Pro certification exam. So with custom metrics, we have a bit more flexibility than just the metrics provided out of the box, and they can be very beneficial for troubleshooting and creating alarms. So when we have access to these logs, one of the benefits in troubleshooting is that we don't have to SSH into an instance. We have these logs available in CloudWatch. And if we're dealing with a CloudFormation stack, again, we have access to these logs, and we don't have to pause the rollback of our stack to SSH in and view these logs. Another advantage is we can create alarms and plug in third-party tools for reporting and visualizing. What are our options for using custom metrics? And there are several, and it's just important to know what the options are. Oftentimes on the DevOps Pro certification exam, you'll be posed with a question, and the question could have the complexity of not only do you need to choose custom metrics for your solution, but also how are you going to deploy this solution? Could be CloudFormation, it could be Elastic Beanstalk, it could be OpsWorks. It could be from the command line interface or an API or SDKs. And later in the lesson, I'm going to work through a custom metrics example from the command line. So that's half the battle, knowing the services from which you can deploy your logs agent and configure your custom metrics. And then the other half of the battle is just understanding how these services work. CloudFormation, OpsWorks, Elastic Beanstalk. Oftentimes you will have multiple answers using OpsWorks as an example to deploy your custom metrics. So you have two answers using OpsWorks, and one of those answers is going to use OpsWorks in an incorrect way. You need to know the vehicle for deploying your logs agent. Again, CloudFormation, Elastic Beanstalk, OpsWorks. You also have to know the inner workings of these services to be able to pinpoint the correct answer. And we'll have upcoming sections on all of these services. So again, we have multiple options to automatically publish custom metrics and logs to CloudWatch from EC2. So we can install and configure the CloudWatch logs agent. We can do that from the CLI. We can do that via user data when bootstrapping our EC2 instances. We could do that from CloudFormation, OpsWorks, or Elastic Beanstalk. Now, using OpsWorks as an example, our steps would be to install the CloudWatch logs agent, configure the agent, and we would specify which log file to monitor on each EC2 instance and specify where to send logs, and then we would just have to make sure the agent is running. So it's important to just know the general steps. Again, we'll focus on OpsWorks in an upcoming section, as well as CloudFormation and Elastic Beanstalk. Each will have their own section. So ultimately, we want to send our log data, regardless of the many ways there are to get this data in EC2. We want to send it to CloudWatch, and we can search and filter our metric data with metric filters. So when we create a metric filter, the filter can dictate which terms and patterns to look for in our data. An example would be we could count the number of 404 errors our web server returns. Or we could report on how many jobs failed on an instance and why. And then alarms can be created around these metrics. Now, metric filters have 4 key elements. A filter pattern, so what to look for in each log event. A metric name, the name of the CloudWatch metric that we want to send log information to, the metric namespace. So this would be the namespace for the CloudWatch metric, and the metric value. So again, using the 404 example, we could use a 1 for each 404 found. So once the logs are in CloudWatch, we can retrieve statistics, or we could stream the log data into Amazon Elasticsearch. We could stream it to Kinesis for processing, Elastic MapReduce. We could send the log data to Lambda for custom processing, or to load it into other systems. It's important to understand this end-to-end process. Usually, we need to install a CloudWatch Logs agent on our EC2 instances. And we can use user data, we can bootstrap our instances, we can set this all up in a CloudFormation template, we can do this with OpsWork or Elastic Beanstalk. We can configure our EC2 instances from the command line. Now I'm going to show another option, which is high-resolution custom metrics, using a CloudWatch plugin for CollectD. But again, we need the front-end vehicle to get our EC2 instances configured to begin recording this data. We need to send this data to CloudWatch, and oftentimes there's going to be data analysis and processing. Elasticsearch, Elastic MapReduce, Kinesis, Lambda. So it's very possible you could see a question that covers a solution from end to end. Example being OpsWorks, installing the CloudWatch Logs agent, sending our log data to CloudWatch, streaming our data to Kinesis for further processing. So that would be one end-to-end example. So again, we need to know this overall process from end to end, and we have to be familiar enough with each of these services to flesh out the correct answer, and equally as important, to eliminate the incorrect answers. All right, so I'm going to show one way to set up custom metrics. I'm going to go ahead and launch an instance. Amazon Linux AMI. The T2 Micro is fine. And I'm going to give it a roll and review and launch. Download my key pair and finally launch. Now let's just go over and wait till our instance is ready. While we're waiting on our instance, I'm going to change my split screen, and I'll have the management console and the command line interface up. All right, so I wanted to show a different way to configure custom metrics, and we will do so from the CLI. So I'm going to grab my connection information, make sure I'm in the downloads directory, change the permissions on my key pair, and now I can SSH into the new instance. So I'm going to set up high-resolution custom metrics. With the high-resolution custom metrics, we can publish metrics to CloudWatch with 1 second resolution. So this is a pretty powerful option. Now, if you ever watched your memory on a machine, it can vary pretty quickly. So the high-resolution metrics focused on memory can be extremely helpful. So we can publish high-resolution metrics in one of two ways. We can use the API, the old school put metric data command, or we can use the CloudWatch plugin for CollectD. And CollectD is an open source statistic gathering daemon. So our CloudWatch log agent is a daemon as well. This plugin offers some additional functionality, such as automatic discovery of instance ID and AWS region. And just a little detail on our metrics. 1 second metrics are available for 3 hours. As you can imagine, this data can build up pretty quickly. 60-second metrics are available for 15 days. 5-minute metrics are available for 63 days. 1-hour metrics are available for 455 days. And this is just informational. This is not information you need to know for this DevOps Pro Cert exam. So I'm going to go ahead and install collectd for Python. And I'll include these commands in the course material for this lesson. All right, and that was quick. Now I need to get the setup script for the plugin. I'm going to clear my screen. And I'll run that. It's unfortunate that we don't have a metric filter set up on 404 errors. But I see my mistake. And let's try that again. All right. Just need to change the permissions on my setup file and run it. Okay. Region number 1 is good. Host name number 1. That's our EC2 instance. See our host name, our instance ID match. There's our IAM role. And we can just go with none for the proxy server name, proxy server port. We can just select no for autoscaling group as a metric dimension. No. Enable high resolution. Yes, we definitely want high resolution. 60 seconds. And for this one, we want to use the CloudWatch recommended configuration, number 3. Plugin configuration written successfully. Okay, so let's go over to CloudWatch. So we're at high resolution. This is already sending data from our EC2 instance to CloudWatch. Let's go into metrics. All right, and we have a custom namespace for collectd. That's what we want to look at. CPU percent active. Not much going on yet. Memory used. And percent bytes used. Now, these are just showing up as dots. All right, so we're starting to get some data. We're starting to get a little bit of a line graph going. Now, one thing we could do, I'm not going to do in this lesson, we could actually use the stress tool and stress our CPU a little bit, and we'd certainly see some action on our graph. Just one note, our little blue line here, that's our 10-second countdown. Now, one final thing I want to show is, let's go over to alarms and create an alarm. And let's choose our collectd namespace. Now let's create an alarm on memory percent used. So when our memory used is greater than 60% or 1 out of 1 data points. So if our memory goes greater than 60% for our period of 10 seconds, we're going to get an alarm. Now let's click Create Alarm. Need to set a notification. And let's click Create Alarm. All right, there we go. So we now have an alarm for memory use on our EC2 instance using custom metrics. So with that, we have completed this lesson. So go ahead and mark this lesson complete, and let's move on to the next.